Do you want ideas for getting more out of your small sentiment stamp sets? Hi, I'm Jess from JessCrafts.com, and I'm here to help you make the most of your crafty supplies and time. So let's get making. Today I'm going to work with the Wordfetti Fa La La Scrapbook.com stamp set. There's a couple of different Wordfettis available. I also have the December one. This one has a little bit more like card sentiments, so I'm going to pick that one today. And we are going to use it more like a background stamp. And there are a couple ways you can do this. I am working with some products from the latest Tim Holtz and Sizzix release and want to say thank you to scrapbook.com for providing these for me to work with and share with you. So I can take the Wordfetti and just turn it over. So I've taken off the like protecting backing sheet, but I'm leaving them all on their indexing sheet, which is what tells you what, each of the sentiments say. And I'll use it on top of my background here, mostly so you can see it, but I wouldn't recommend this because you could get ink on your background there and you probably don't want that. Now, this is the easiest low tech kind of, not tech, but the least number of supplies you need. I'm gonna use Distress Oxide ink. It doesn't always give you a perfect impression, but it does transfer ink pretty easily because it's a pigment ink. So you can use literally whatever ink you have on hand, whatever is your preferred ink. These are the frame tags from Tim Holtz and Sizzix. They have that really nice embossing detail there. And you want to be able to get as good of an impression as possible. So what you want to do is put some scrap paper over this and add some pressure. So we're gonna use this as scrap paper. This is an advertisement that came in my scrapbook.com package. Ordinarily I wouldn't use this, but it's I didn't have any other scrap paper when I went to reach down, so here we go. And then this is allowing me to get a really nice impression without getting anything on my hands. You could, of course, use your hands, but then you're gonna spread ink everywhere. Okay, so hopefully this has given us a pretty nice impression. We also given it 30 seconds to a minute to contact with the paper, and I made a bit of a mess of that, but that's okay. Peel it off. And it's not a perfect impression. If you want a perfect impression, I'm going to show you a better way of approaching this, but it still gives you that background word look with a really simple technique and not needing any extra supplies. If you want to be able to get a more perfect impression, using a stamp positioning tool will certainly help you with that. So what I have here is a mini Misty with this scrapbook.com sticky mat inside of it so that I can put a small die cut anywhere I want, or really whatever I want to stamp. In this case, I'm just happen to be using a die cut. And you can use your Misty magnets to hold it down too if you want. But now I need to attach my stamp set onto this backer sheet, onto the Misty door. So I think if I just kind of center it, that's going to be good enough. I have the scrapbook.com dot roller adhesive. They also have repositionable adhesive, which would be ideal, but I don't have that at the moment. So I find that the dot adhesive is a little bit easier to rub off, and it works pretty well as a repositionable option. Now, you might get your backer sheet dirty in this process, or your indexing sheet, but I'm okay with that. My stamp products are for me to use, not to keep in pristine, perfect unused condition. So this is the top layer of the Tim Holtz Yuletide Colorize. Well, actually there is one more layer. It's the top layer that I'm going to use. But there's many, many layers, and I'm not going to use them all personally, just because I sometimes like to do a little bit more of that detailed look, but not always. I'm gonna go with peeled paint distressed oxide ink. Again, oxide ink is maybe not the most ideal stamping ink, so you go ahead and use what you want, whatever ink works well for you. I just know that I might be using some distress colors throughout my project, and so I can keep everything coordinating perfectly. And now this way I can also add some interest to this die cut, and you could use, like a cloth. Tends to work really well. Pull down your sleeve. It's a little warm for that today. And If you don't like the impression that you get, you can continue to stamp it until you get a perfect impression and then clean off your sticky background here. I want to show you, this does come off quite easily. It's just enough tack to hold things in place. I'm not going to rip a delicate die cut. Cleans up really easily. And so does this, you know, even though they're right there on that sheet, I have a towel that's just very lightly damp. I don't want to have too much water because then that will spread the ink everywhere. And then in terms of the adhesive, you just rub it off your Misty door with your finger. That'll do. You can get like a scraper or something. Same thing, it just rubs right off the top of your stamps. But of course, if you want to do multiple things, just leave the adhesive there until you're done. Okay, I want to add some inking around the edges of this, or just over this die cut in general. There's going to be 3 layers, a back layer, a middle layer, a top layer. I don't want to have to pull this out. And so I'm going to take my scrapbook.com mint tape, which is another kind of low tack tape, and just hold my die cut in place until I am finished with my inking, and then I'll be able to easily pull it apart. Alternatively, and probably a cheaper solution, but you might over time kind of wear down the tack on this, is you could just place it on here instead of using the mint tape. So you could just place the whole thing down and then that'll hold it in place as well. And you can ink on this, but you're gonna get ink on this background, which we just did and I showed you came off just fine. So whichever way works for you, whichever product you have on hand. Just some quick inking. See, that holds that in place. That part that's coming out is not actually part of the die that I'm going to use in the end, so that is why I'm not worried about that getting bent up or anything like that. And that's allowing me to change the tone. The cardstock that I'm using today is from the scrapbook.com Christmas cardstock collection. In the past, with intricate dies, I've always recommended that you use like two-way tape on the back, like these big sticky sheets. And I would say with the colorized dies, I recommend that less because you really have to line up each layer. And so liquid glue provides you an opportunity to move everything around a bit more. So that back layer, you know, that having the two-sided tape works, but for the layers in between where you're stacking them on top, I think I would probably opt for liquid glue in this case, even though it's a little bit more fussy. Although even for some of them, they're actually not necessarily the most intricate anyway. They're actually some really big pieces. So there is more to this die. You can add a bell, you can add additional layers, but I think that I like what I have at this point. I have the added interest of the words, and now I'm ready to just turn this into a completed card. So I'm going to pull out one of my 6x8 paper busting templates and my scrapbook.com 6x8 pattern paper. I picked the Fa La La paper from the pad. I thought it was kind of cool that it harkened back, like it has words in the background, but then you kind of can't really see it. The last way that I want to use my Wordfetti set is in the traditional sense of just stamping it. I want to make sure that I get it straight, even though I'm going to use a stamp block. So I find that it's kind of helpful to sort of lay it down on your mat and kind of mess with it there gently and then bring it on your block. But if I ever try to like apply it to my block, I tend to mess it up. But if I have it kind of sitting nicely on my mat and then I press down with my block, I personally have more success with getting it straight, and that's what I'll want to do in this instance. Now, if I make a mistake, it's very easy to just cut out another one, but and sometimes I'll do this, sometimes I'll stamp with the Misty to guarantee that I have a great impression. I also like to stamp it off on some scrap, especially if it's the first time that I have used a stamp, so we can just stamp it there on that tape that I previously used. I picked a colored ink. I really like the look of colored sentiments as opposed to neutrals, but a brown would work really well in this instance because there is brown already going on the card. I would not stamp in black because there is no other black on the card. I like to save the string from tags on clothing, but I only have black right now and I don't really want to incorporate that. So I'm going to pull in twine, but that can be a little way of saving some money if you don't use a lot of twine and that kind of thing. If you found this video helpful, here's another video where you can find more ideas for enjoying your crafty time and supplies. Let me know you like this video with a share to your crafty community. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss the next template or tutorial, and check the video description for product links. See you in the next video.